small. You haven't got no brains at all. They treat you like you're really dumb and feed you chips and chewing gum. But we have got a show for you that gives another point of view. News and views and facts and fun to help you get your homework done. No, 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 no kidding.
No, no kidding.
We are not kidding.
We are not kidding.
Made by kids with kids in mind. TV show of different kind.
Hello and welcome to No Kidding. We begin by continuing our tour of Delhi's amazing monuments. This week, a group goes south to Mehrauli, which in Shah Jahan's time was known as Old Delhi.
The area in and around Mehrauli is said to be the first of the 7 cities of Delhi. It was originally known as Lal Kot and was built by Raja Anand Pal around 1060 AD. He was a Hindu Rajput, as was Prithvi Raj III, who later extended Lal Kot and renamed it Kila Rai Pithora. Very little of Lal Kot remains, just a few ruined walls and an iron pillar. The iron pillar is a standard of Lord Vishnu dating back to the 4th century. It is over 7 meters long and made of iron that has hardly rusted despite being 1600 years old. If you can touch your hands, your dearest wish will come true. The iron pillar now resides in the Quwwatul Islam Masjid, which was India's first mosque and built by Qutbuddin Aibak, the first sultan of the so-called slave dynasty in 1191. The other kings of the Delhi Sultanate, Shamsuddin Iltutmish and Alauddin Khilji, added to it. The details of the walls and pillars show the spirit of the improvisation that the Hindu craftsmen struggled with, resulting in a unique style. At one corner of the mosque lies the tomb of Iltutmish, who was Aibak's son-in-law and successor. Built in 1235 by Iltutmish himself, it is plain on the outside but intricately carved on the inside. It is one of the oldest tombs in India and curious for the fact that it has no roof or dome. Perhaps it never did have one, for it is part of Muslim tradition that a grave exposed to morning dew and rain is more blessed. The same is true of the grave of Princess Jahana, the favorite daughter of Shah Jahan, which lies in Nizamuddin. Leaving Iltutmish tomb, we take a walk behind the western wall of the mosque, where we have a dramatic view of the world-famous Qutb Minar. It is 234 feet high, the highest single tower in the world. We are now walking along the southern wall of the mosque and approaching the Alai Darwaza. It was built in 1311 by Alauddin Khilji and is named after him. It was actually the gateway to the city that lay south of the Qutb complex. The Alai Darwaza is considered to be a gem of Indo-Islamic architecture. It is built of red sandstone with details in white marble. Here we have another view of the Qutb Minar, this time from the east. It was built in various stages. The first story was built by Qutbuddin in 1199 and the next 3 by Iltutmish in 1230. It was damaged by lightning in 1322 and repaired by Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Later, Firoz Shah Tughlaq converted the 4th story into 2. To the left of it, we have another exterior view of the Alai Darwaza, which shows the marvelous detail on the arches of the entrances. Here is a tiny entrance in the eastern wall. In the background, in front of the Alai Darwaza, is the tomb of Imam Zamin. In the garden is a sundial from a later period, but still a time when exact hours, minutes and seconds were not so important as they are today. We leave the Qutb Minar complex now and come to the tomb of Adam Khan in Mehrauli village. Adam Khan was one of Akbar's nobles and was killed by him. His mother Maham Anga built this tomb for him. This tomb was used as a dark bungalow, then as a police station, until Lord Curzon ordered that it be properly cared for. Its popular name is Bhul Bhulaiya, meaning a maze, because of the difficulty of finding the way out. Here we are entering a monument called Jahaz Mahal, which lies further into the village of Mehrauli. It was a sad sight to see it plastered with posters and inscribed with graffiti. To the rear of the Jahaz Mahal lies a large tank called Hauz Shamsi. It has red sandstone pavilions around it and was built by Iltutmish in 1229. All the usual activities of bathing and washing clothes are still carried on here by local residents. There are many other monuments in Mehrauli, some in a sad state of ruin and maintenance. The last monument we visit is Jamali Kamali's mosque and tomb, built in 1528. Jamali was a renowned poet and saint. From the hilltop, we have one last look at the amazing Qutb Minar.
Well, there are so many different Delhis, it's unbelievable. And so many of them still to be seen and explored. Anyway, now for a different kind of exploration. Let's see how the human body works.
In how things work, we looked at television, remote control devices, and computers. All machines, all non-living things requiring electricity to work. How does the human body qualify to be called a machine?
Well, some people might say that we also run on electricity. We're not exactly to a socket, but the brain acts as a computer which sends lightning fast messages to all parts of the body to the nerves. So fast that if I do this, you respond without any time for thinking.
Another machine is the heart, which is often referred to as a pump. In the huge transport system of veins and arteries, it pumps blood which carries the food and oxygen necessary for survival.
In this process, the lungs are like a recycling factory. They feed oxygen from the air we breathe into the blood, which is pumped all over the body in the arteries. Then, after the return journey in the veins, the lungs take out carbon dioxide, which the body does not need, and replaces it with fresh oxygen that the body does need.
Another machine is the liver, which is often described as the body's chemical factory. It's the largest organ of the body and carries out hundreds of chemical reactions. Most of the liver's activities are to do with making substances, digesting the food, and for blood clotting. It also acts as a storeroom of food materials. One of them, for example, is glycogen. When our muscles need lots of energy quickly, like when we are playing football or when we are swimming, the liver converts glycogen into sugars and releases them into the bloodstream. The liver also acts as a heater, a major source of body heat that keeps us warm-blooded. It also acts as a blood purifier.
Wow, that's amazing. And even more amazing is that all these things are going on inside us and we're not even aware of it.
Yeah, even when we are asleep.
Are there any more factories in our body?
Another one, or rather two, are the kidneys. They act as a sort of filter plant. They filter out small materials like food substances, waste and water and put back only the essential ones. This leaves us with a liquid which we call urine, which contains unwanted materials and passes out to the body via the bladder.
Another factory or processing plant deals with the solid food that we eat. This is, of course, the stomach and the intestines and is known as the digestive system. From one end of the system to the other is a length of tubing about 30 feet long. The whole process takes about 24 hours.
And what about the mechanical operations of our bones and joints and muscles, without which we can't even move, or jump, or lift things, or do anything?
And what about our eyes, by which we can photograph everything around us in color, like a camera, and our ears that make us sensitive to noise and give the body its balance so that we don't fall over? And what about the nose, which lets us smell what's cooking? And the taste buds in the tongue, which tell us what's sweet and what's sour? And what about our skin, which holds everything in and keeps out water and dust and germs and sun's harmful rays, which repairs itself automatically and which assists in temperature control by sweating?
Hold on. All these things, all these machines and factory systems working at the same time, how is it possible? And if I'm not aware of most of them, who or what is in control?
Your brain!
My brain? What brain?
The one in the thick skull, Dumbo.
But you said that the brain is like a computer. And I don't know any computer that can do so many operations all at the same time.
That's right. It's a miracle computer. As well as controlling your heart and your lung and your muscle and your liver and everything else in your body, it also thinks, reasons, imagines and memorizes.
It has helped us create language so that we can communicate in speech and writing.
It's the brain that made the computer.
So the brain must be brainier than a computer.
Right.
The brain, the whole body. It's a miracle.
Right. So look after it.
The human body is more than a machine. It's a miracle.
Well, you're not leaving the human body just yet. For this week's interview, we have Divya and Prashant at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences and talking to a very famous doctor.
Lup, dup, lup, dup, lup, dup. This might have given you a big clue to guess the name of the person we are interviewing today. Whom do you think he is? Yes, it's Dr. P. Venugopal, the doctor responsible for India's first and only heart transplant. Hello, doctor. I'm Prashant and this is Divya.
Hello. Well, many people know that you are the only person in India to do this first heart transplant. Did you do it for fame or was it for any other reason?
Well, let me clarify to you, it's the first successful heart transplant.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm telling you is 1968, the group in Bombay headed by Dr. P.K. Sen, they tried to do the same thing, but it was not successful. Now, the second part of it is, neither it is for name, nor it is for fame, nor it is for money. It is the necessity. A person with a cardiac disease, end-stage cardiac disease, the only treatment available is heart transplantation.
Were you sure about the success of it?
Well, I'm pretty certain about it because we have worked for it. We know what are the techniques. We know what are the shortcomings if they are to be taken care of. We have prepared ourselves completely for this operation and so we are confident about it and we are able to do it.
Could you tell us something about the process of the heart transplant?
See, as I explained to you, heart transplantation is given only for the patients where there is no other form of treatment is available for the heart disease, number one. And the heart which is to be transplanted should have been in that condition that he is virtually bedridden, patient-wise, and he is crippled. Now, where is the heart going to come? It is what is called a donor. A donor is a one who has suffered what we call it as a brain death. In other words, he has got irreversible brain damage either because of the disease or because of the fact that he had undergone an accident or a trauma where brain has been damaged, and that person is maintained on life support to maintain his circulation, but his brain is not functioning. He doesn't have any reflexes. He is supported by the respirator and various other mechanical devices. So the moment we withdraw the life support, his heart will stop. Now that is the type of person who has undergone irreversible brain damage. He is a candidate who can donate his heart, who can donate his lungs, who can donate liver, pancreas, kidneys, to save the lives of 5 or 6 different people, and that is what it is essential. And from that person, we take out the heart while the heart is beating, and that heart is transplanted into the person who is suffering from this end-stage disease by removing his heart and connecting the new heart. Essentially, the new heart should be normal. It should be from a person who is below 55 years of age, who has not suffered any heart disease or any trauma to the heart. And those are the type of hearts which are normal and they can give excellent results.
What do you think are the qualities a good surgeon should have?
A good surgeon should have a good theoretical and practical knowledge. You should anticipate the problems rather than try to treat the problems when they come and prevent them. And you should have a very streamlined mind whereby you can plan the steps of the operation and everything has to be done before you start the operation. And that leads to success.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this as much as we did, and we hope this inspires all those young children who want to become doctors when they grow up.
Well, it's nice to know you're in such good hands when something goes wrong with your body. Time now to catch up with the news desk.
I'm Rohan and this is Swati, your 2 news readers for today.
Beach goers helped save 27 deep water dolphins that ran into trouble on the beaches of Florida, USA recently. The blue-gray mammals struggled on a sandbar for hours before being spotted. Then volunteers got into action and in a massive effort lasting over 2 days were able to push the dolphins gently out to the sea again. The dolphins were last seen heading into a channel towards the safety and freedom of the Gulf of Mexico.
For centuries, the people of Lemhat have practiced a unique kind of farming, snake farming. From the thick forest around their village, they pull out snakes from trees and holes in the ground. The more poisonous, the better. Snakes, especially the poisonous ones, are used in traditional Chinese and Vietnamese medicines. Snake fat helps heal cuts. Snake blood mixed with alcohol is thought to be good for the kidneys. Snakes are a popular item on the menu of many Chinese restaurants. Snake wine is very much in demand, especially in Thailand and China. The most profitable part of the snakes is the venom. The villagers dry the venom into granules and sell at rupees 14 lakhs per kilogram.
A team of conservation scientists fishing along the river waters in Kerala sighted a rare fish with muscular extensions like an elephant's trunk protruding from its forehead. These muscular extensions protrude from the fish's forehead and have 8 small suckers on either side. These suckers are often used by the fish to pick up stones and pebbles, to build nests, to lay eggs, and enables the fish to attach itself to rocks and stones.
The country, well known for its exotic perfumes, France, has discovered gas fragrance that will be used by motorists instead of the stink of diesel. The motorist will have a choice of selecting between vanilla or fruit perfume petrol, which has already been welcomed by people in the cities of France.
Proximity and Terrace sound like new star constellations, don't they? But they are not. There are 2 new systems to prevent car thefts. Proximity has a touch memory chip. The chip is connected to the ignition of the car and it prevents the car from starting until the owner's corresponding chip is identified. It can also be programmed to identify the owner and automatically unlock the car when he or she approaches it. Both these systems make it impossible for anyone to fiddle with the ignition and steal the car. Bad news for thieves.
In an effort to beat the Guinness Book of Records, Japanese cooks claim to have made the world's largest omelette using 160,000 eggs, 1.8 tons of potatoes and 300 kgs of milk. It took 3 hours to make and was 50 feet long and 1,380 square feet in area. The cooks use a 50 feet oval frying pan with a lid weighing 1.5 tons. The omelette was so massive that even after 5,000 people ate pieces of it, there was enough left to feed another 40,000. But how did they flip this 160,000 egg omelette? Truly egg amazing.
Eating garlic may not do wonders for one's breath, but doctors claim it can be significantly used to improve one's health. According to medical reports, garlic consumption plays an important role in reducing the death rate of patients suffering from heart diseases and strokes. Garlic further helps in lowering the pressure of people suffering from high blood pressure.
This man beats himself and wins at the same time. He is Sergei Bubka, who beat his old world pole vault record for the 35th time with a vault of 6.14 meters at an international athletics meet in Italy. 4-time world champion had set the previous record of 6.13 meters 2 years ago in Tokyo. For the last 10 years, he has been unbeaten except on one occasion.
Till now, computers were able to distinguish between different objects, but not between 2 similar objects. For example, if your face and your best friend's face were presented to the computer, it would not be able to tell the difference. But now computers are being taught to recognize faces. These computers would help security systems and police in recognizing criminals.
Lemon is good for all kinds of skin problems. It is also a good treatment in people suffering from dandruff. It helps in good digestion and can be used to treat tooth and sore throat problems. Tomato for ages has been used for improving the skin as well as purifying the blood. It helps in the treatment of TB, blood pressure, sinus and all problems related to gases in the stomach. Well, that's all from the news desk. Bye.
Bye.
And now for the climax of the program. A swinging quiz and a swinging vote.
Hi and welcome to the No Kidding Mind-Boggling Quiz. We have 2 teams for the contest. In Team A we have Divya. Hi. Shruth.
Hi.
Swati
Hi.
and Aditya.
Hi.
In Team B we have Devika.
Hi.
Tejeshwar.
Hi.
Namrata.
Hi.
And Rohan.
Hi.
The rules are as follows. We shall have 2 rounds in this quiz. The first round has 10 questions in it. And the second round will have 6 riddles to be answered. The marking system for both the rounds will be the same. 10 marks shall be given for the correct answer. Questions shall not be passed. There shall be no negative marking. There are 10 seconds for each question. To begin with, we will start with Team A. Who is the author of the book Man-Eaters of Kumaon?
Jim Corbett.
You're absolutely correct. Which month is named after the Roman god of war?
July?
No, you are absolutely wrong. The answer is March. Who uttered the words Eureka, Eureka?
Archimedes.
You're absolutely correct. Name the currency of Italy. Lira. Correct. The 100 sons of Dhritarashtra also had a sister. What was her name?
Dushala.
You're absolutely correct. Which international game was actually invented in India at Jabalpur?
Hockey.
No, the answer is snooker. Who demarcated the line that was to divide India and Pakistan?
The British.
Time over. And the correct answer is Sir Cyril Radcliffe. Which Sultan of Delhi fell to his death while playing polo? Time up. The answer is Qutbuddin Aibak. The only snake in the world that builds its nest is found in India. Which one is it?
King Cobra.
You're absolutely correct. Which is the tallest building in the world?
Empire State Building?
No, you are wrong. The answer is TD Star, Chicago. At the end of the first round, let's have a look at the scores.
Team A has 40 points and Team B 10 points.
So let's begin with the second round, which is the riddle round. Are you ready, Team A, for the first riddle? Though we feed this greedy fellow on rubbish and old wood, make no mistake, he'd gobble up our houses if he could.
Fire?
You're absolutely correct. When trees and bushes go to sleep and birds and beasts all hide, it lays a cold blanket white across the countryside. Moon? You are wrong. The answer is no. He's sometimes quite bad-tempered, but pay no heed to that. It's lots of fun to watch him because he's quite an acrobat. Time up. The correct answer is monkey.
Yes.
His mom works at the dairy and his dad is very strong. Though he's never heard of chewing gum, he chews that whole day long.
Moon?
No. The correct answer is calf. He's not easy to get hold of, the slippiest fellow you have seen. But if you treat him gently, he'll get your fingers clean.
Soap, you're absolutely correct. Oh, yeah. Though this weaver's work is done, he will still be somewhere near, simply sitting, waiting for his dinner to appear. Dog? No, the answer is spider.
So at the end of the final round, let's have a look at the scores.
The winner is Team A with 60 points and Team B is the runner-up with 20 points.
Well done! Congratulations to Team A for having won the no-kidding mind-boggling quiz.
Well, I hope you didn't get seasick and were able to score well. Our program's dropping anchor for a while, but we hope to see you again soon. Bye.
People think if you are small, you haven't got no brains at all. They treat you like you're really dumb and feed you chips and chewing gum. But we have got a show for you that gives another point of view.